This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. Professor George here, and I'm going to do a short PowerPoint presentation on the basics of demand. I'll have two more following this, one the basics of supply and one the basics of supply and demand put together. This is an important bunch of information, so make sure that you follow along. Don't feel afraid to pause me. You can fill out most of your study guides right from this lecture. So let's get to it. I'm going to share my screen and get right to my PowerPoints. Okay, so we're doing demand. This lecture is on demand. So this is going over everything that we're going to be learning. You have these PowerPoints at home, but we're going to do demand and supply, but this lecture is just demand. So the demand curve is downward sloping. So I want you to remember this. I want you to remember that D down demand. The demand curve, if you put a ball on the top of the curve, it'll roll down. It's a downward sloping curve. D down demand. So the demand curve is downward sloping, and we know from other chapters that a downward sloping curve is an inverse relationship. We're showing the relationship between the price of a product and the quantity demanded. So the demand curve looks like this. To show you real quick. So this is the demand curve right here. This is the demand curve. This is price. This is quantity. The price is the independent variable. So this downward sloping curve, as you see, sorry about that. This is P1. This is Q1. As I lower the price, what happens to the quantity demanded? It increases. So that is simply the law of demand. As the price falls, the quantity demanded goes up. That's an inverse relationship. It's a downward sloping curve. And I hope that that makes sense to you, that it makes sense to me that if the price falls, I'm going to buy more. If the price of shoes falls, I'm going to buy more shoes. If the price of going out to dinner falls, I'm going to go out to dinner more. So in general, ceteris paribus, as the price falls, the quantity demanded increases. Now this slide is called a demand schedule. So we have the demand curve, the law of demand, and the demand schedule. And a demand schedule is just a bunch of P and Qs put together. So this is just showing us at every different price level, what is the quantity demanded. So we all have our own personal feelings about price and quantity combinations, but this is, and you see the A, B, C, and D. So these are ordered pairs. If you plot these ordered pairs, you will have a demand curve. So you just looked at A, B, C, and D, and we plotted it, right? This is one person's individual demand curve for t-shirts. And again, if the price falls at a price of 20, the quantity is going to be 4. Whoopsie. Good. So we'll keep going. So why does a demand curve have a negative slope? As the price of a good falls, people can afford to buy more units. As the price falls, you can buy more. It's just that simple. Don't make it more complicated than that for now. It might get more complicated in later chapters, but it's basically just showing you the inverse relationship. So we had this schedule of one person's individual demand curve for t-shirts. Now we're saying, let's take a few people, we'll call them the market. This is the market for t-shirts. The market for t-shirts is just the meeting of the suppliers and the demanders to hammer out what the prices are going to be. So the market demand for something is just adding up all the individual demands. So this is a very simplistic example, but you see that at a price of $25, Fred will buy 1. Mary is not going to buy any. The total demand will be 1. At a price of $5, Fred will buy 5. Mary wants 7, so the total demand is 12. So this is a representation of where we're going for the demand curve and the law of demand. As you see, as the price falls, the quantity demanded increases. Now we have it graphically. We had Fred's demand curve, we have Mary's demand curve. You add them together and you get the market demand curve. So don't be afraid of these graphs. They're just adding together what's in that table. So that was talking about moving along the graph. This is a change in quantity demanded. Now please listen up. I have a whole video, a YouTube video posted about the difference between a change in quantity demanded and a change in demand. They sound very similar, but they're not. So the only thing that can change a quantity demanded is a change in the price. And this is shown to you as a movement along a given demand curve. So right here, so this is our graph that's showing you a change in quantity. It looks like I might have, I'm not going to pause these because if I pause these, I'll never get them done. So this is a prior recording, so just mute that. And you can see here that a change in quantity demand is simply a movement along a given demand curve. So here, as price goes through, at P1, we have Q1. At P2, we have Q2. So we see that as the price went up, the quantity demanded went down. There's an inverse relationship, and that's a movement along a given curve. Now, we talked about that's a change in quantity demanded. Now we have to talk about a change in demand. Change in demand is kind of a bigger event. It's that people fundamentally feel differently about the product. So we're going to change demand. That's got nothing to do with the change in price. The whole demand curve will shift to the right or to the left, a change in demand. So this picture is an increase in demand. So you see here, this is the demand curve we just posted before. With this demand curve that we posted before, and a price of, let me get a drawing tool, at a price of P1. Initially, I'm going to go bump into my demand curve, and I'm going to demand this much, Q1. Now, something other than price, we're going to get to that list in a minute, something other than price has changed, and so demand has increased, the whole curve is shifted out. That means at the same price, quantity demanded has gone up. So this whole curve, whenever you see that there's an increase in demand, that means the whole curve is going to shift to the right. It's like parallel to shifting over. Sorry guys, we're having a few problems with my technology, but I will get it. A decrease in demand is just the opposite as an increase. It's a shift to the left. You're tempted to say down or up, but it's right or left. An increase in demand is to the right, a decrease in demand is to the left. Now, we know that a change in quantity demanded because of price. A change in demand is due to something else happening. This is a new concept, key idea, that a change in one of these 6 things is going to be what changes demand. Okay, these are called the non-price determinants, or the shifters, I like to call them. So here are the 6 things that will make your demand curve shift either to the right for an increase or to the left. A change in the number of buyers, a change in the taste or preferences. So that would be like an influencer, a change in your income, a change in expectations, a change in the price of complementary goods. Complementary goods are goods that you always buy together, like peanut butter and jelly or cream and coffee, or a change in the price of a substitute good. Substitute good would be like Coke and Pepsi. So we need to just say one more thing about income. So one of the first determinants of demand is a change in your income. So for almost every good, for almost all goods, they're called normal goods. My shoes, my computer, my phone. If your income goes up, you're going to buy more normal goods. That's kind of the normal way for it to work. So an increase in your income will increase demand. But there is something called an inferior good. And an inferior good does not mean that it's poorly made or anything like that. An inferior good just means that as your income increases, you will actually buy less of it. As your income increases, you will buy less of it. Probably the best example would be something like ramen noodles. If I start making more money, I will not buy as much ramen noodles. Another example could be like generic food or store brand food. As I make more money, I buy less of the ShopRite brand food. A substitute good, you can think of what those, I have coffee, Pepsi, coffee and tea, vanilla chocolate, those kind of things. So what happens when the price of your substitute good changes? So let's go to my next slide. I think I did it. Okay, I did. So here's a substitute good, Coke and Pepsi. So this is the market for Coke. The price of Pepsi has increased. You got to keep your markets straight. This is the market for Coca-Cola. If the price of Pepsi goes up, your demand for Coke will increase. And that's what I've shown you here. I put the supply curve in here because we're going to be getting there soon, so don't let that scare you. It's just the same thing, that rightward shift to your demand curve. Another determinant or shifter is a good that's a complementary good. Peanut butter and jelly is a good one. So think about it. If the demand, what happens when the price increases for a good that has a complement? So if coffee and creamers, what happens in the demand for coffee when the price of creamers increases? So if the price of creamer goes up, I'm going to have to buy less cream. And if I always drink coffee and cream together, I'm going to buy less coffee. So the demand for coffee decreases. Remember, one of the key things to get out of this is the difference between a change in quantity demanded. A change in quantity demanded is a movement along a demand curve, and that is caused only by price. A change in demand is changing. That will be a whole new demand curve. I think that's all of them for today. I'm going to make another video soon about supply. So stand ready for that one. Till next time.